Okay, now with that a little somewhat blocked out. So what I'm thinking is that he's probably going to wear some sort of leopard print loincloth, maybe over one shoulder, so we get a little asymmetry. I think the body should be more boxy, so not this tapered thinner waist, but I'm going to make it the same width as the chest the whole way down. And yeah, let's see how we get on from there. So once this is done, we hit the back arrow, say yes to save. I'm going to turn off the skeleton, and we're on our way. So I want to get my blocky shapes first, so I click on chest, click on pencil, and I'm going to just thicken out the lower part of this chest. For now, I'm not going to worry about colors. I'm simply just going to build up the shapes. Okay, and let's say that's okay for now. Actually, I do want to build up his back so his chest is more inclined to engulf his neck. So I'm going to actually add to the back and bring just detail corners back there just to soften the edges so it looks less square. Do I want to go further back? I think I'll change maybe the location of some of the body parts by changing the pivots so his head is more forward and a bit more sunken. Let's just see one more back. Once you're up here, you can change the angle of the lighting. So let's do the belly next. If I'm unsure, I can test it like this in this pose, but I could also choose another animation just to see how well I am lining these up. That puts them in a T-pose. So everything is nicely lined up then. There's basically no rotations on any of the joints. If you ever want to check that, up here on the right inspector, you can see the translations and the rotations of any of your skeletal joints. So even though I'm selecting the object, effectively, this is showing the details for the joint or skeleton node that this particular object, in this case chest, is aligned to. And you can see the rotations are zeroed out. So let's turn off skeleton. All right, let's do the same with the hips. For now, I'm going to be creating a loincloth here later, so we're just getting the shapes in place. Okay, I think I could thicken up the arms, although I kind of like the idea of him being a chunky caveman with thin arms. So let's start off with the head. We're going to realign some of the positions so that he is more of a caveman posture. I'm going to move his head forward, which probably means I need to either remodel his neck further back or just make it thicker. But now his head will rotate from this location, but it's also now postured in a slightly different way. It's postured more forward. I'm going to bring most of the body forward a little bit. I think also just because it's all aligned so far back on the legs. So actually I can probably go a little further, but you have to remember that this location here that I'm looking at, where the transform is where the head will rotate from. So don't go too far forward. Idle combat, where his legs are sort of spread. This is the sort of caveman pose. He could do it thicker forearms just to give that Popeye type feel. If you know who Popeye is, I could certainly thicken the legs coming inwards into the center of the body and then give him big fat feet with large toes. Yeah, let's block that in. Currently, the right leg and the left leg are separate models, so whatever I do on one leg, I will have to do on the other, or I will have to copy the model. It's not a big deal to do, but since I'm only going to make some broad changes now, I'm going to do this manually. And because I don't want too much stepping, I'm going to do the same to the lower leg. Let's build out these faces until they're aligned with the thigh. So here's a case where the object doesn't align with the other object and I've run out of space. So this slightly light grayed out grid here is my building area. Once I exceed that, I can go no more. So I'm clicking now and I can't build any lower. I have two choices here. I can either realign the object by doing this and then building out the other side, or I could change the dimensions of my building area. So just for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to extend the width of this object. So these colors here on the work area, the green is the vertical, red is the X, which is the left and right, and the blue is the Z, which is the forward axis. We're going to extend the red axis so that we have another building block out here on the side. So to do that, we have the red here. So I'm going to up that. I can either up it to 7 or 8 if I want to keep things nice and even. But I'll just go to 7 for now. Now I've got one extra block here on the side, which means I can build the lower leg out one extra voxel width. And there we go. So once again, let's return. Let's, for the purposes of this, copy across the left-hand side of the body onto the right. If you click on the three dots on the right thigh, you can go to unlink VXM from node. That just removes the model thigh as well. And the foot we will just replace by dragging, dropping. So the skeleton is still here. There's just no model parent to it. So to make this work, we have to select the left leg, and we're going to duplicate it. So we have to find it over here in our model list. So left thigh, you can see it highlights in the viewport. If we select this here, it's a duplicate button. Now there's already a right thigh in this scene. So we're just going to call this right thigh 1. Normally you would clean this up afterwards. So I made a duplicate. I'm going to do the same with the left leg, which is the lower part of the leg. And we have everything we need. So let's find right thigh. Let's drag and drop it onto the right thigh node. And the foot is already here. So we're just going to drag and drop over it. Now you might notice that everything is flipped at the moment. It looks to be flipped over the x-axis, so we're just simply going to go and solve it. So to do that, I'm going to go into the edit model. I'm going to turn on the arrow because I want to see. Then all I have to do is flip it across the x-axis, and now they look effectively mirrored in the correct way. So you can assume the whole leg only needs to be flipped in the x-axis. Okay, let's see how this guy looks. All right, great. Let's give him a bit more detail then in the body. Let's give him some skin color and a loincloth. I think for the purposes of this, we will start with the hips so that we get the look for the loincloth first right down here, and then we will build it up through the belly and the chest. So I'm thinking like leopard print. So I'm just testing out the patterns here. They could be smaller, they could be larger. I kind of like them this size because I don't want to go too small because they just might look speckly at a distance. Yeah, I think those will hold up if you've got NPCs. It's good to have solid, clear shapes. I just have to make sure that his skin color and the color of his loincloth aren't too similar, partly because it'll make him look naked, but the other reason is you just want that contrast. I think what I'll do is I'll make his skin color slightly darker. Let's pop into the head and play around with the skin color here. I can either change the actual color itself or choose a different color within the palette. I tend to like to hunt through the palette first before I change any colors like I did with this guy down here. I'm going to go 2 across from it, and I'm going to just color all that section. Yeah, that might hold up. There we go. I find this a bit noisy in here, so I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. So everything isn't decided like upfront. I'm constantly exploring and reevaluating and testing things. I'm not afraid to make mistakes. The only way you'll learn in making art is to make lots and lots of mistakes. Like I'm looking up here along the suborbital ridge, and I'm thinking I want to highlight it a little bit with what might be like a crease. Something like this. And do I want some shading here? Might make me want to make this voxel here next to his eyes darker still. Yeah, let's do that. Let's choose this guy down here. This voxel, and this one here next to his eye. That's interesting. One of his eyes looks like he's had a black eye. I haven't got symmetry turned on. But for now, we'll just mirror it across, but we won't give him the piece underneath. All right, so let's get to that loincloth and his belly and his chest. Okay, so I added in a little bit of painted ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion is areas where the light just can't quite reach, and you tend to get a darker edge. Another thing is to watch out for too much detail. Where two models might intersect, you'll get a lot of clipping then. So this particular color section here, this particular part of the pattern will intersect with the belly model. So this is what I mean here. This particular piece of print may just be a bit too much on the edge. While we're here, we'll add in the chest. Okay, you might also want to give them a little bit of a highlight on some parts if you want. So you can give the chest a little bit of shape. Sometimes underneath a shadow, you can put a slightly lighter voxel color or texture color, and it brings out the sort of depth feeling of the shadow. So this would mean I would have to do this with the face as well and any other skin areas. But it's a nice way of getting an extra little bit of depth on the shape. So let's add a little bit of that to his forehead as well. You can also see that the loincloth really is too close to the skin color, so that's more like it. Also looks like we could do with a bit of ambient occlusion down here where the loincloth reaches the skin. So let's do that on the hips. Let's hit play on this, see how it feels. Okay, so before we get into any more detailing, which I would like to do on the forearms, maybe the shoulders and the legs, is I want to solve the legs where they're cutting through the loincloth. Now, you basically want to take control over some of things like this. And the way to solve it in the legs is to make sure that the part of the leg that you think will probably always be inside the loincloth has got the same color. And this way, you'll see in a moment that it makes him feel, as it were, a little less naked when he stands like this. All right, let's copy that leg across. And let's fix the chest.